successful franchises.
My Lords, I shall endeavour to be brief, and may I repeat what other noble lords have said in expressing my gratitude to the noble Lord the Minister, as I mentioned at third reading and when the bill passed, for his courtesy and collaboration during the course of our debates on this bill. My Lords, the government's problem is this. It wishes to reform the railways. Now, there is a great deal of support in your Lordship's House and generally amongst the public for a reform of the railways. This is across all parties. And we would like to discuss what the government is going to do on a number of issues. And had the government brought this measure forward, the measure in this bill, as part of a large and comprehensive bill introducing those reforms to the railway, we would have had the opportunity to have those discussions. We would have been able to discuss, for example, the role of freight and the tension between the priority given to passenger services and freight services that inevitably exists in a constrained system. We would have had the chance to discuss the continuation of open access and competition on the railways. We would have discussed the devolution of the operation of train services to regional and local authorities, such as exists in London and might exist in other parts of the country. We would have been able to do all of those things as part of a comprehensive reform bill. But the government has decided not to bring forward a comprehensive reform bill of which this is part. It has decided it is going to do this step first, that is to seize control of the train operating companies, and then the great bill of reform is promised for the future. The government says it will be brought forward within 12 to 18 months. That is a challenging target, and as I have said tediously in the past, over and over again, even after that bill has gone through its parliamentary process and passed, let me finish my sentence, and passed, it will still take several years in order for it to be implemented.
My Lords, I agree with that there is a substantial degree of consensus on the need for reform, which the previous Conservative government started 5 years ago with the Williams Review. But when we come into office, we find that there's a very partial bill prepared that doesn't cover all of the issues which need to be included in the railway reform bill. It's the neglect of his previous administration that has led to this situation.
I'm not here to defend the previous government, and I wasn't making a tedious, trivial party political point when I said this, but let me say that I suspect the previous government was dilatory and slow in bringing forward a massive reform of the railways because it is a very complicated business. And that goes to my point that even if the government brings forward its bill within 12 or 18 months, or rather I doubt that the government will be able to bring forward a bill within 12 to 18 months precisely because of that complexity. And because of this large gap in time, we are, through the passage of this legislation, we are creating a new situation for the railways that could endure for 4, 5 or 6 years with no sense of accountability or purpose that the government has, because everything we wish to discuss, the freight, the open access, the devolution, the answer to all of those has been, we can't discuss it now, we can't tell you anything now, you have to trust us. Trust us, just like the government said trust us to the pensioners, like it said trust us to the farmers, like it has said trust us to large businesses who are landed with business rates. And the truth of the matter is, we do not see why we should trust the government. This is without any disrespect to the noble Lord the Minister, but he is just one person, and like all of us, fragile and frail. We cannot build an entire railway system and entrust it to the government on the strength of one particular minister because of his noted, genuine and respected skills. We need to know what is going to be the standard to which we can hold the government accountable during this new and quite lengthy period. And the idea of having a purpose clause, the objective of which is not to set an objective for the railway, as the minister has sometimes said. We're not setting an objective for the railway. We are setting an objective for this bill, and this bill is about seizing control of passenger railway services, and all we are saying is that the standard we expect to be set is that the purpose is the improvement of passenger services. And if we cannot see those improvements, then at least we have a standard to which we can hold the government to account, and that this should be on the face of the bill. Warm words, butter no parsnips. They are nothing to which we can hold the government accountable. And so, my lords, if my noble friend Lord Gascoigne chooses to press his amendment to a division, we on this side will support him. May I turn briefly to motion B? I don't think the government realises how helpful motion B was intended to be to them. It is, after all, one of those rules in life that if something is doing well today, it is likely that tomorrow it won't be doing so well, and vice versa. And so what is the government now holding out as a practical prospect? They are going to move ahead, and one of the first franchises they're going to take control of is Greater Anglia, one of the best performing, one of the most popular. And what is likely to happen to Greater Anglia, just by random chance, is that it will start to deteriorate. And, of course, the government's programme of nationalisation will be damaged in the public eye as a result, whereas they are going to, if they had seized control of Avanti, which is what we are guiding them towards, what we were guiding them towards through motion B, then, of course, some improvement would have carried them forward and shown how well nationalisation was working. So, of course, we were trying to be helpful to the government, but the Commons has claimed financial privilege on this, and as far as we are concerned, we give way. On motion A, just to say, I'm sorry to hear the noble Baroness Lady Randerson say that she is going to trust the government. She'll be joining a long queue of people who've trusted the government. I fear she is going to be disappointed. But enough for now.
My Lord, it's always a pleasure to follow the noble Lord Moylan and congratulate him on another polished speech. I mean, it ought to be well polished. He's made it at least 4 times during the passage of this particular piece of legislation. And he's not said anything new, of course. We've cantered around the same course about Avanti trains and the future of the railway system. This is a small bill designed, of course, to create an overall body to be responsible for running the railway system. It was an idea conceived by the party opposite. They said, well, of course.
This bill doesn't do that. If this bill created Great British Railways, that would be another story altogether. This bill doesn't create a body. It simply is the government seizing control of existing railway companies.
Absolute nonsense. This bill is designed to implement a body as a result of an inquiry into the railway system set up by the party opposite. Indeed, they were so impressed, the party opposite was so impressed when in government by the Williams report, that the then Secretary of State for Transport, Grant Shapps, added his name to it. And yet, here we are now, didn't actually do anything about implementing it, because, of course, the backwoodsman opposite felt it was a bit too much like nationalisation to have an overall overarching body responsible for the railway system. Now, we could have disposed of this particular amendment later at night during the course of the committee stage of the bill. But the noble Lord, at least for the opposition opposite, refused to sit after 10 o'clock at night. Now, there might have been a good reason for it. Perhaps it was past Lord Gascoigne's bedtime, or the equivalent. But he would not he and his party were not prepared for a proper debate on this particular issue, and they still aren't.
My Lords, the amendment which we did not debate late at night was an amendment about the management of the railways in London. It had nothing whatsoever to do with whatever the noble lord. I see him giggle in the corner now. He knows he's having fun at the House's expense. The fact is that this bill does not do what the noble lord says it does. And the other fact is that the Williams Review did not envisage nationalisation of train operating services in this country, but rather the use of the private sector on what is referred to as a concession basis rather than a franchise basis, the technical differences between I shan't bore the House with now.
My Lords, I'm neither giggling nor am I in a corner, so I'm not. I find that the noble lord's contribution to be as specious and as inaccurate as most of the contributions he's made during the course of this debate. He keeps repeating the same tedious stuff about the detail. Well, if the noble Lord Gascoigne, who I've clashed with a couple of times in this chamber, wishes to intervene, he should indicate, and of course I'll give way to him. No, he doesn't wish to indicate. Well, in that case, I'd be obliged if he sat down and listened just for once. And perhaps learned. Yes, there's another point too. The fact is, my lords, these are delaying tactics by the party opposite. I'm amazed that the Liberal Party should want to be associated with this particular amendment. I mean, it is contrary to custom and practice in this place. Not that I'm a great one for adhering to the rules necessarily. But the fact is, this is a meaningless amendment, putting a duty on the Secretary of State, which he already has. What Secretary of State wants to do anything other than improve the railway system? I mean, didn't always succeed, of course. They might have been well meant during the course of the time of the party opposites, but certainly the Secretary of State's intention at that particular time, at any particular time, would be to improve the railway system. It really isn't necessary to add such a thing into such a clause into this particular bill, and I'd be grateful if my noble friend treated it with the contempt it deserves.
I want to thank all the noble lords who have taken part in this debate.